metabolism is the ability to make energy. So we take, let's make a step back. We think about things, this is how I kind of look, right? Is as a human being, right, is that we are made up of cells. As I always kind of say to people is that you look at a whole person, but we're made up of different systems. We have a digestive system, we have a cardiovascular system, a pulmonary system, right? Reproductive systems, immune systems, different systems that all work as a whole. And when you kind of break these systems apart, we have specific organs to pertain to those systems, right? So we have the ovaries and testes as an example, part of the reproductive system, and the lungs is part of the pulmonary system. And then when you kind of break the organs apart, right, is they're made up basically of cells, right? And so as a human being, we are, depending on how large a person is, we're made up of somewhere, they argue, between 30, 35 trillion to about 70, 75 trillion cells, right? And that's what it is. And so actually we live and we die at the cellular level. The very basis of disease or aging and disease, okay, is the cells becoming unhealthy, becoming sick, not performing properly, and either dying, or because they're not going so well, they actually then start to replicate erroneously, which would be what cancer actually is. So really it's a cellular thing. Okay, and so really when we're talking about metabolism, right, we're really talking about how well can you make energy at a cellular level. Okay, I think what I want to do, actually, it's just going to be more helpful for me to share the screen and work through some pictures. Okay, so I just kind of want to do that. Let me share the screen. I'll pull this picture up. If I can. So this is a little, just a little drawing that I made a long time ago, but it's easy for our discussion, right? So this is a picture of a drawing of what we call a healthy cell. And a healthy cell has two layers of a membranous fat around it. Yeah, and basically, we all know this, that inside our cells, I'm going to show you some actual cool pictures, but inside the cells, in the center of the cell is the nucleus, right? And your nucleus carries your genes, your DNA or your genes. And your genes are there to program the production of proteins, right? We are made up of proteins. And so in order to make proteins, your genes are giving instructions to make those proteins. But in order for your DNA to do this thing, in order for you to have the replication of making these proteins, your DNA requires what? It requires energy. That's what it requires, right? And so inside your cells, you have these, what we call these powerhouses. Many of you have heard of that, which is called mitochondria. Okay, that's the powerhouse of the cell. Now, the mitochondria, in some cells of your body, you may have maybe a couple of hundred mitochondria inside one cell. And remember, we're made up of 30 trillion cells, right? But when you have specific organs like your heart, even your endocrine, your hormones, glands, but mostly, specifically the brain. Your brain is the largest consumer of energy. So your brain and your brain cells have upwards of about 2,000 mitochondria inside one cell, right? Because they produce so much energy, right? Now, again, we're talking about metabolism. What does that mean? It means that when we take in food, so let me go here, another picture. Right, and so if we look at, I gotta move these around a little bit, right? All right, if we just look at this picture here, just kind of, I got a lot of stuff on my screen, right? But up top, what you see is we see food, we see fats. When we eat food, we have fats, carbohydrates, and proteins. Now, I know when we talk about eating, right? We eat for, we say, what is really the real purpose of eating? Right? Well, we eat for a lot of reasons. We eat because we're bored. We eat because we're depressed. We eat because it's supposed to be time for eating. We eat for a lot of different reasons. We're celebrating things, all this kind of good stuff. But fundamentally, really, we're eating food in order to process that food and convert it into energy. And where do we convert it? Where does that energy get converted? It gets converted inside your mitochondria. This diagram is just showing you basically, mitochondrial energy production 101. So we eat fats, we taking carbohydrates, and we taking proteins. And we have to break these things down, right? And there's a lot of chemical steps here that require nutrients and certain vitamins and certain minerals and enzymes and whatnot, but they all get broken down and they kind of find a final common pathway into something called acetyl coenzyme A. So all fats, carbs, and proteins get broken down into this. And this acetyl coenzyme A is what goes inside your mitochondria. And inside the mitochondria, it goes through various processes, chemical reactions. Step one is called the citric acid cycle, and that passes down to something called the electron transport chain, right? It goes through various stages, and basically, this is where your oxygen comes in. So we need oxygen in the mitochondria in order to make energy molecules. That's basically metabolism, 101, right? So what happens if a person is not exercising much, right? There's no activation of mitochondria. There's no oxygen coming in. There's no fuel or energy going to be made at the cellular level. This has got nothing to do with thyroid. Okay. Now, thyroid hormones are important. What? Ask me. Speak to me.
I'm just saying. Yeah, the point not to play devil's advocate to thyroid this early in the game. The point is to just. You were saying your premise was that.
So thyroid hormones are important everything is important, right? Thyroid hormones have to go inside your cell. Right? Everything has to get inside your cell, right? So the insulin that carries your glucose locks onto an insulin receptor to get the glucose inside your cell. Thyroid hormones go inside the cell, and the thyroid hormones interact with your mitochondria to help your mitochondria work and process in order to make energy, okay? That's what I'm trying to make that distinction, that it's really the function of the mitochondria that's energy production. And that's what metabolism really is. This is the reason why so many people can have normal thyroid hormones. We look at a blood test, right? And they're still having problems losing weight. They still have brain fog. They still have this global energy, right? And no one knows what to do because they're just looking at thyroid. They're not looking at a deeper component to this, right? If you look at this picture here, right, this is a drawing end. This is what we call cellular inflammation. And this is also what we refer to as called oxidative stress. Many of you have heard of oxidative stress. Okay, basically it just means sort of rusting. The fact that as we breathe in oxygen and convert oxygen into energy is the byproduct as we produce a certain amount of oxidative stress, right? And this is why people need to eat foods that are high in antioxidants to buffer the oxidative stress. So if we have more oxidative stress than we can buffer, what begins to happen is the cell changes. The cell becomes inflamed, and these hormones like thyroid hormones, they can't get into the cell. And so the mitochondria don't get what they need. The glucose, the fats, the proteins can't get inside the cell properly. And so basically the mitochondria don't have any fuel in order to make energy, and therefore the cell doesn't have enough energy.
Are you sort of saying that there's a huge difference between when we think of metabolism, we maybe loosely associate, so we meaning patients, women.
Yeah.
We think of metabolism as a weight gain issue. You go to the doctor just reads a few markers. Your insulin is high, your this is high, this is a problem.
Right.
Right? They just give you a few strategies. But what we're really trying to do is say there's another, because that has gotten nowhere. The doctor talking about blood sugar, the patient talking about weight gain. Are we saying there's another better way to look at metabolism from a cellular level, from a mitochondria, that we can just kind of go to the cell and start?
Yeah, if you can hear that question properly, is that the answer is, that's my point. The point is yes, is that when we talk about metabolism, as I gave you the definition, there's nothing that says a thyroid hormone there. It doesn't even say, what it says is metabolism, right, it needs to sustain life, right? And this is happening at a cellular level. So metabolism really is the ability for your cells to make energy, and where they make it is in the mitochondria. This is where we really need to be looking globally, okay, when we're dealing with issues, even if it's weight issues, right? If it's cognitive decline, okay, or just brain fog. I mean, all of these things really are happening at a deeper level. And so what's happening in the healthcare world, in the medical model, is doctors aren't looking here. They're just not. Okay, they're just looking to look at for example, a blood test, and prescribe some hormones or something and make your blood test look pretty. But that's the point, right? Is many people complain that their thyroid hormones look great and that.
Stop using the word thyroid, but this was about hormones. Your whole point was that hormones, want to fix the hormones.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say. The point is what I'm trying to make clear is that people think of hormones, that's their problem, that their hormones are imbalanced. And yes, people do have imbalances in hormones, right? But I'm trying to make this clear. I'm trying to reverse the thinking, right? The thinking is that my problem is that my hormones are imbalanced. And if I somehow can figure out a way to balance my hormones by taking hormone replacement, when my hormone gets balanced, then all's good. I'm going to feel a lot better and the weight's going to come off. I'm saying to you that often leaves people disappointed. Okay, I'm not saying that's not an important strategy, but I'm trying to turn it around, right? Because the question is, why are hormones imbalanced to begin with?
We talk about hormones, we talk about a lot of hormones.
We don't just talk about, we're talking about all the hormones. I'm not going to, this is why we want to build this course, right? Because let's just, since you're bringing that subject matter up, let's just understand when we talk about balancing of hormones, okay, what actually controls and regulates the balancing of your hormones, right? It's your brain, right? The main part of your brain called the hypothalamus. I like to call it the CEO of the hormone corporation, right? That's what's regulating your hormones. So it's brain-based. So what happens is a hormone imbalance a glandular problem, or is it really a brain problem? And it really is a brain problem, okay? And what does your brain need? I said to you, what your brain needs is a lot of energy. Your brain uses more energy, more fuel than any other organ. So if we have metabolism, if we have poor energy production, if our mitochondria are not working properly, we're going to have problems. We're going to have, changes in energy of our brain, and then that's going to lead to hormone imbalances.